Okay, so this is a tutorial on how to fill out your facility manager log. You will do this immediately following your shift. I recommend that you have this information pulled up, and as you're going through your shift, you fill out things as they occur, and that way you can have the best detail and you'll know what kind of questions to ask and things like that as you're filling out this log. And as we know, they're very important so that we can kind of keep track of everything and really make sure that we are recording everything diligently. So the first thing you do is choose your name. So there's this drop down list right here. For just this purpose we chose Brittany as an example, and then you choose the month of your shift. So it has all the months listed here. Then you're going to choose the date, right? So we have all of the dates listed. Just ensures that I know which shift you're talking about and all that stuff if things change at the last minute or if unfortunately you fill it out late or something like that. So then you choose your shift classification. So if you're opening the building at any point, unlocking the doors, unlocking the rooms in the mornings, on the weekends, then you'd click this opening. The middle shift will do for the first shift on during the week, so the 4 to 7:30 p.m. And the shifts on the weekends that don't require any opening or closing of the building. And then obviously closing is when you're closing during the weeknights and weekends. And then if you're a second manager for an event or something like that, maybe you're doing some job shadowing, then you'd click this second manager button right there. Okay, so if you by chance forgot to fill your log out immediately following your shift and you're doing it late, a couple hours later the next day, you just click this yes button obviously and then know if you're doing it on time. So first thing is, were there any event no-shows? And this is any event. We used to just do RSOs, but now we're doing all events just to keep track of everything and make sure we know what's going on. So the first thing you're going to do is put a little dash mark so I know if there's more than one thing in the column, I can see that there are two different events. So you'll have the event group name, so DS, what room number they're in room 207, and then the time frame, so 7 to 9 p.m. And then you'd say, I checked the room and I noticed they weren't in there or something like that. You should be checking the rooms and making sure that the groups are in there when they say they're going to be in there. Sometimes they're late, sometimes they leave early, so we want to be really diligent about how you know that they missed their room reservation. So then we have another example, admissions, room 105 from 8 to 9. And then you could say something like, I didn't check the room, but they never came to get their key. And then you ask the house staff and they didn't see him in the room. So do a lot of checking before we automatically say that they're a no-show, because we will hold the groups accountable and they'll get in some pretty big trouble depending on how many times they have not shown up for a reservation. So be diligent about recording that. Make little notes on your setup sheet. Like I said, record this as you go, and that way we have all the information needed to follow up with the groups. And then also we're going to start recording any events in the north, south, or east ballroom, and then also the west ballroom events. So record the group name, admissions, they were in the east ballroom and they had 900 guests. So if that number fluctuates, like they're in the ballroom for dinner and they have maybe 300 people at dinner and then another 100 come the dancing later, then you're going to record obviously that 400 number as the highest number of people who came. And then any reservation issues, and there's a couple different ways you could record this. So you could add a group in if they come in and they need an emergency room, and then you would just say added Students for Choice, which is a student group on campus, and the room number 205, and then at 5:30, so it's the time you put them in the room. And then you can give a little description like they forgot to make a reservation or something like that. Or like this example here, we have ASB thought they had a reservation in room 157 at 6 p.m., but they couldn't provide their confirmation email for that, so that's something that they forgot to check or something like that. So we just want to make sure that we're asking all the questions and seeing if they have a confirmation email and something so that we know what's going on. And then the last example, CAB had a confirmation email. They were able to show it to you for room 208 at 8 p.m., but maybe it wasn't on your schedule or something like that. So we're just asking all the questions and recording everything so that we know what's going on and we can follow up with the groups appropriately. Okay, any maintenance issues? So examples of this include the men's bathroom on the second floor was very messy, and you checked that at 9 p.m. So instead of just saying the bathroom was messy, give some description. So which bathroom was it, male or female? What floor was it on? When did you check? Did you check back in later? You could say checked at 9 and then, came back at 10 and it was cleaned or something. Making sure that you're following up with things, and maybe if you're talking to the custodian on duty or something like that. A few lights are out in the bookstore stairwell between the first and second floor, and you discovered this at 10:30 p.m. is the second example. So again, it's not just I found a few lights out, it's I found a few lights out in the bookstore stairwell between the first and second floor. So you know exactly where it is, and the next day Mitch can follow up with that and see about getting those fixed. And we have all the information we need to do that appropriately. And then the third example is about a damage in one of the rooms. So candle wax is found on a table in room 207, and what time you found this candle wax. And then if you know, you can say DSK was the last group in the room and it was checked before they went in. So you should be checking the rooms before and after each use so that we can check for damages and see which group did the damage and then hold them accountable. There's been quite a few instances where we've been able to pinpoint the group that made the damage, and then they had to pay a certain amount of fee or they lost some privileges due to that damage. So we want to make sure we're holding people accountable, but that we know exactly who did it and when. So we have backup for that. Okay, any issues with coworkers? So any issues with the Information Center associate, technicians, anything like that, maybe another manager, you can write that in here. If it's pretty sensitive, you should send an email, but anything just kind of just so that we should know can be put in here. So the first example, Alan was late to a shift by 15 minutes, so Melanie stayed to cover the desk until he got there. And then maybe you can put Alan's excuse, he said the bus was late. So again, record any pertinent information and make sure that we can look at that and know exactly what happened and why. And then maybe what you did to resolve the situation. And then Melanie gave out a room without the manager approval, which shouldn't happen. They should be, contacting you, and you should be giving out the rooms instead of them, unless obviously they checked the schedule and it was on the schedule. So any emergency rooms should be taken care of by you, the manager. And then you can say I spoke with her about the mistake and maybe give an outcome. If she gives some sass back, then you say, well, she had a little attitude about it, then we can follow up with Melanie later. Okay? Any emergencies? So there's a number of things that you can put in here. Most of them will probably pertain to DPS or something like that. So your first example had to ask a male student to leave the Information Center associate alone. He persisted. Asked him to leave the building, and he still persisted. Threatened to call DPS, and then he left, which is most of the time how it happens. Students hear DPS and they start listening to you. So you can go ahead and use that, but record it in there just so we know what's going on during your shift. Another example, called DPS because the night security person was not there on time. So on time would be 11:30, as we all know. So if they're not there by 11:30, you call DPS and they'll should send somebody out there. And then again, put some more information in there. They said they would send somebody by 11:45, and then maybe you can say person showed up on time or something like that, so that we know how the situation was resolved. Called DPS. A few students were being disruptive in the lobby and wouldn't leave when I asked them. And then you could say DPS came and they left, or they left by the time DPS came, or however the situation was resolved. Okay, any notes from the facility technician or house staff? So you should be checking with them every single night to see if there's anything that you should record in the log, anything that they've seen or they experienced, if they were talking to a guest about something. Group, or the example I have here, several groups requested AV or cords, AV cords at the last minute and didn't request it when they reserved the room. And then you could say something like, I checked with them to make sure they request it next time. If you're involved in the situation, or if they tell you later, then you could just say, told me at the end of the night, or something like that. And that way I know you did everything you could to resolve the situation. And then any general comments, you can put some positive goes to Melanie for staying late to cover Alan. She was great help today. Something like that. If there's another thing, if you want to put down and it doesn't seem to fit in any of these categories, you can put it in the general comments. I like to hear positive things about your coworkers, so if you want to use this space to record some positive things going on and let us know when you have, good coworkers, that would be fantastic. And then you'll just hit submit, and that's all set, okay? So that's how you fill out a manager log.